you think about all the hate in the world that's going on. It's really hard to understand that, how people can hate each other and kill each other when this beautiful, loving energy is available to everybody. It's like the glue that holds everything together.
So, how did your work get started?
I have to go way back to my childhood, really, because my brother had epilepsy. And it put a terrible cloud over my whole family because he had this condition and we loved him, and it created so many problems. He couldn't even go to school because he would have attacks at school and they'd send him home. So as a result of this, I remember having a feeling, one day I will find a way to heal so-called incurables, because he couldn't be cured no matter what they did. And time went on. Of course, World War II came along, and I went into the service. As I came back home after discharge, I was at a little while not knowing what I was going to do exactly, but I made up my mind, well, I'm going to go on to the University of Wisconsin to be a doctor and to take my pre-med there first. So I registered at the university, and I had this very, very bad low back problem. My left sciatic nerve was so painful. I'd sit in class and it'd give me great pain. I'd try to get up and had difficulty getting up and down. Well, they couldn't seem to do anything about it there. And someone said, why don't you try a chiropractor for this condition you got in your leg? I know one that'll probably help you. I said, well, get me in contact. So I did. And one adjustment, and I was free of pain. I couldn't believe it after all those years. This had come from an accident where I had fallen off a sandbank in Brazil. It was gone like that. So I said, well, what am I doing going to medicine when I can get such quick results with chiropractic? So I decided to go to his college, which is Logan College of Chiropractic in St. Louis. So I decided to go there. My brother, who's also, we've always done things together an awful lot in our family, and he was in engineering. And I called and told him what I was going to do. He said, well, can I come along with you? I said, well, come on along with me. So we both went down together to investigate the college. And what we found there was so encouraging. They were working with incurable conditions. They were doing some great work there. So I decided, and he decided to also become a student there. So during my 4 years at college at Logan, I had this man come up to me and tell me, I know a place where you need to go after you graduate from here. It's in Georgia. I had never thought about going to Georgia. A place they call Buckhead, which is a suburb of Atlanta. And he not only told me this once, but several times. And later on, I began to think about this after I went there, and I started my practice. And this just happened to be in the same area where this lady, who's now my wife, was located.
Had to happen.
And we think we have accidents in our lives. My practice got started there, and one day this other chiropractor came in and said, I want to acquaint you with something I think would be very useful for you to take, a course they call concept therapy. Took that class, and I was really feeling great about continuing with this work because it gave me ideas and concepts and beliefs that sounded right to me about healing. And healing what I was there for. So I thought, well, a combination of chiropractic and this method, this science, and it really is a science, body, mind, and soul, that it would be helpful. So I did, and I began to study it, work with it. And then I had another class coming up with the originator of the class, Dr. Thurman Fleet, as being being the teacher. And I went to that class also, and I saw him curing headaches just like that. I thought, well, this is what I want to do, and I will. I just knew it inside I was going to do that, and even probably more. But over this time, I began to realize that this brain we have is filled with concepts and beliefs that are negative, and they create our problems. Now, how do we get that out of there? How do we neutralize those things? And this science, concept therapy, also showed a method whereby you would talk to each other. You'd have a partner, and the partner would ask you questions or give you words, certain words, and you would respond by giving what that word brought up in your subconscious. They were lodged in there. And those that were not exactly in harmony, you would hesitate. You couldn't answer immediately. You'd be stuck. And you would take that word and you would go back and say, why does this word affect me? It said in this manner. And I find that one person would respond beautifully to the chiropractic adjustment, and maybe another wouldn't respond. They would not hold that adjustment. I said, why is this? And I had this question in my mind. And I realized that the muscles were contracting and pulling the bone back out. Now, what caused them to contract? So in the concept therapy, I began to get a strong idea there was concepts and ideas and beliefs that contracted those muscles. So I was a great one for talking to God. I would say, God, I want to know all about healing. I demand to know. I want to know. And I found out that when you demand something, God's going to give it to you. You got to be serious. So I began to observe that I began to get some communications in my brain. I knew they came from the source. And I began to get it, past lives that came up. And my religion never taught me to think about past lives. So I became very doubtful for a while, wondering, am I getting into something negative here? What am I doing? But I began to accept these past lives and work with them, and I find relief.
Is it your past life or one of your patients' past lives?
Past lives of my own come up. And gradually I began to open up more and more to this sort of thing. And I felt God was speaking to me. And it was that. I was getting communications from that creative power that created everything that we tend to call God. Then it went through my mind, well, there are many religions, and they all call this power by their God by another name. I know there's only one that created it all, and I'm in communication with that. I became more and more sure of that as I began to feel response inside of me. And time went on, and this philosophy taught us to program ourselves with positive things. And I was also a runner. I had a very strong, healthy body. And I got to do a lot of running. And I would run through the forest where I lived, and I would I say, Doc, you're healthy, you're happy, you're beautiful, you're this, you're that, all the positive things, and I love you. I said, I love you. Someone says, no, you don't, inside of me. I said, what's this talking back to me? And then I realized, if you've got a program in you that's contrary to the one you're putting in, you've got to release the old program before you put the new one in, or the body will accept it. So that's when my releasing started. Then I realized I had to release that old program. I released my hate and anger at myself, putting myself down of what it might be that I could feel. Then I could put in the program, I love you. So time went on, and sometimes I get a little doubtful, well, why am I not moving a little faster? I was very impatient. And one day, I tried to get a receptionist that would understand what I was doing. And I had one that at that time was quite understanding, and she would meditate with me during our noon hour. So this particular noon hour, we were meditating. And the time came when she said, well, I think I need to get up and open the door for the patient to come in. And I said, well, I can't leave right now. Something inside of me won't let me. I'll come as soon as I can. So go ahead. So I sat there, and the most beautiful music came into my head that I've ever heard before or since. I sat there, the tears were streaming down my face. That was God talking to me for sure. That power. That great loving power that created everything. And I still have emotions on it. It was so beautiful. I can never forget that experience. And I knew that power was telling me I was right on track, doing the right thing. And then as the patients began to come in the office, I began to look at them, and I could see where their problems were. Didn't have to use x-ray anymore. I just knew. And it was very fulfilling for me. This is what I had dreamed of. And I began to work more and more with other incurable conditions. And one epileptic, I had cured a number of epileptics before this happened with great success, and which gave me a great happiness. And one day this epileptic came to the office after Yolanda began to work with me. And the teacher had told her to go home, that she couldn't come to the class anymore. She was about 12 years old. And her mother brought her into me. And she sat down in the chair over here, and the mother was over there. I tuned into her energy field, and I got she hated her mother. I said, you need to release your hate for your mother. She said, I don't hate my mother, I love my mother. I said, there was some place where you did. It took me about, maybe 15 minutes to get her to say the words, I released my hate for my mother. And when she did, she screamed. And she ran across and jumped in her mother's lap, put her arms around her neck. Mother, I love you, I love you, I love you. And at that time, she was cured of her condition. And I tuned into it, and Yolanda was there, and she had to go around and tell the people, don't be alarmed at the screaming. The other patients were disturbed. It's just a case where this young lady was being cured.
Well, the mother said at that time, yes.
Oh, yes.
I remember what happened when she was about 3 years old. I was going through a very trying period in my life, I think, going through a divorce maybe. And she said she was pulling on my skirt and trying to get my attention, and in my frustration I said, go away and leave me And she said, I noticed that she was shocked, and her eyes looked different. And she said, I tried then to soothe her and say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, but nothing I said seemed to change it. And this changed it. And it was at least 5 years later. We didn't hear from them. And the mother came back in the practice, and I was at the window taking care of the clients coming and going. And she said, do you remember me? And she gave me her name, and I said, no, I'm sorry, I'm afraid I don't. She said, do you remember the young girl that screamed when you were working with her? And I said, yes, I do. I will never forget, because I had to go and soothe everybody. We had 4 adjusting rooms full and the waiting room full. And I had to go assure everybody that no one had been injured and everything was okay. And she said, well, my daughter has never had another seizure, and she's living a normal life. And now I'm here for me. I have some problems I want help with.
Can you explain this to me? How does it work?
Yes, the soul is a computer operator. We, the soul is who you are. You are a soul. You don't have a soul. You are a soul. You have a body. You have a brain.
And the brain is your biological computer.
And when you make a release statement, it's like pushing the delete button on the computer. This computer was designed after this computer. This is the original one. So when you make a release and say, I release, it's like pushing the delete button on your computer. And it deletes the cell memory all the way through your body, brain and body. So the condition changes immediately.